Tēnā koutou katoa. I te tuatahi me mihi ka tika ki a koe, Michael, mō tō karakia I tēnei ata, te whakatūwhiri I tēnei hui rangatira, kia pai te haere o te rā me tēnei kauhau pia, hopefully. Ka huri ngā whakaro hoki ki te hunga mate, rātou kua pohutu kaua tia, haere atu rā, rātou kia rātou te hunga mate, tātou kia tātou te hunga ora. Tēnā koutou katoa. I will switch to the language of my ancestors, boys, Coleman, rātou mā, that arrived here in Aotearoa in the early 1830s, in Nelson as well, in Whakatū, is where my family is from, so that you can all understand what I'm saying. Thank you so much to the organising committee for allowing some random person, whoever it was going to be from Te Hiku Media, turn up today. For those of you that are aware of our work or have heard of us before, I'm neither of the two very good-looking, very fit men in our team. Ko Suzanne, Duncan ahau, no ngā iwi o te rarawa te au pauri me ngai takoto. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. I am the third part of what our team called Te Tokotoru Tapu, the Holy Trinity of Te Hiku Media. And I'm the one that's usually not at these things. I'm usually like a CC in an email. I'm just beavering away in the background. Definitely not a keynote. But I have to say, and it has been a long time since I've been a part of these kind of conferences and spaces, that when we started out doing this work 7-8 years ago, all of the things that you mentioned in your opening address around data sovereignty and te tiriti being embedded in this kind of work we didn't hear that. We felt very much back then like a lone voice in this space. So it is actually really, really heartening to be here and to be in a room. It used to be that we felt like, hey, we've got to really nail this home. We've really got to convert people to our way of thinking. And I'm now kind of like, what am I going to talk about? Because I feel like we're at this amazing point in our maturity, I think, as researchers in this AI space. So, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. As you pointed out, Mick, prior to joining Te Hiku, I was talked to Nick about as an accidental academic, where you kind of just stayed at the university and then they were like, oh, you're really good at teaching, we're going to give you a job. And then you sort of become a lecturer and then you're like, oh, this is great. And then I woke up 10 years later in Dunedin, freezing, going, why? Hang on a minute. This wasn't what I was meant to be doing. I was going to go home. So 10 years in Te Tumu, School of Māori Pacific and Indigenous Studies, researching Māori economic development. I went, oh my gosh, I need to go home. So I moved home to the far north, where my mum's family is from. I initially went into local government, which was an experience, and I met Peter Lucas Jones, and that is when I guess I got swept away in this amazing project that we've now been working on for close to 8 years, and got caught up in the passion of the man. If you've ever seen him talk, you know what I mean. And then you find yourself keynoting at these kinds of things. But just so you know, some people say that if you're having to talk directly to me, you're actually in a lot of trouble. That is not the case today. I do really, really want to be here. And while I said it's been heartening to hear that there's been a lot of progress in this space, I think, with the acceleration of AI, its development and its adoption, it's increasingly important that we continue to say these amazing things. I'm guessing this is what I meant to use. Okay. The title of our talk today comes from a paper that was published in Ethical Space, the International Journal of Communication Ethics, Kia tangata whenua, AI that grows from the land and people. And so kia tangata whenua can be understood as making something natural and normal and to sit cohesively and respectfully within its environment. And we've always believed at Te Hiku Media, for it to do that, it has to be done in conjunction with the people that are from that place and from within that environment. In our mind, it must be led, but sometimes it's not always possible, and so at least it must be done in conjunction with and with leadership in place. So our story at Te Hiku Media is about what happens when the community takes the lead. And so we did this with language revitalisation, first through broadcasting and now in developing language technology. and we think this is a story that matters for the broader AI research community, especially here in Aotearoa, where we have an immense opportunity right now to build powerful, high-quality, sovereign technology for the benefit of Aotearoa. And it's going to require really strong partnerships across community, academia, and industry to do so. So I hope by the end of this you'll see that it's not just about ticking an ethical nice-to-have box as well, but actually it makes your tech really, really good. And it makes it really high quality as well. And you can't reverse engineer it. So you can't add it in later. It has to kind of be there from the start. So just for a little bit of context about where we were about 8 or 9 years ago, we were looking at this challenge of te reo Māori. It's considered a low-resource language. We like to talk about it as under-resourced, and there's political reasons for that. But it's another way to think about some of these minority low-resource languages that exist. We have over 200,000 people that say they can converse in te reo Māori and 71,000 people that say they are fluent or proficient speakers, so 4% to about 1.5% of New Zealand's population. There's really limited digital data, so to train models, AI models, and even if it is digitized, it's still not quite usable. So hopefully National Archive people aren't here yet, maybe they're arriving tomorrow. But you know, our underfunded GLAM sector are struggling under the burden of this immense archive that they have. The OCR originally wasn't great, so any OCR digital Māori language text has loads of errors in it, so it makes it really hard to use for training. And then a lot of the stuff is undiscoverable because, yeah, it's been digitized, but it's not like someone sat down and has been able to listen to the hundreds and thousands of hours that sit in these archives. So even if it is there, it's really hard to use for training. Oh yeah, and until, I guess, we started doing stuff, there were no natural language processing tools to make any of that work any easier. If you work in AI, you understand that the kind of standard response to dealing with low-resource languages is to scrape the internet, use large multilingual models, and then leverage transfer learning, mostly from English, because the AI industry, by and large, is built on English-centric approaches that they believe can be adapted for everyone, and I think everyone in this room knows that that's just not the case. If you replace AI research with health research, education research, they can be helpful frameworks to begin with, but they do not work for the benefit of those languages. They also are often built off data that was taken without consent. Generally, they've taken everything, so the good, the terrible, and really sometimes just the plain ugly data, and wonder why it makes all these mistakes. They tend to optimize their models on word error rate, and I'm not saying that word error rate isn't a good standard. It is very helpful, but it's only one arm of being able to evaluate anything. It needs to still sit within cultural context, and you've got to understand, you have to have people that can look at it and understand, okay, well, the word error rate's great, but why is it wrong? And I can tell you why it's wrong, and I can tell you why it's doing that. So, they miss cultural context. So for a polysemic language like te reo Māori, where one word can have multiple meanings within different contexts, a lot of the models can't cope with all of these multiple meanings, and it only takes a little bit of a play around on the G-Translate tool for you to be able to find errors in that ability to understand context, cultural context. Now, these weren't the challenges we were trying to address 8 years ago. We were really looking at our legacy as an iwi radio station, our commitment to our community, and just trying to get people talking Māori. In particular, our Māori from the north. Michael's gone. So our Māori, not Ngāti Whātua's Māori, no, Te Hiku's Māori, and our own people, right? 86% of our people don't even live in Te Hiku or Te Ika. 86% of our people live all over the world, here in Auckland, and so we wanted to solve this issue. That was our primary goal, not all of this AI bias stuff. That sort of came later. So we were established in 1990 as an iwi radio station. So we were born out of the language movement, the revitalisation movement, the land rights movement. Hone Harawira was our first station manager. So that sets the expectation of how we operate as an organisation. Hone Harawira, Hilda Harawira, they were our broadcasters in a shed by the Kaitaia airport. That's where we began. We were born out of the vision of a kaumātua from Te Aupōuri. She'd heard about these iwi radio stations. Manga Muka got one, why can't we have one? And so we got one. And that's where we began. We began as this place for our iwi to talk Māori on the radio and talk Māori to each other. At that time, we still had really high levels of intergenerational transmission in our communities, but I think this queer could see what was coming and that we needed to do more. So we've been collecting and archiving content from our broadcasting activities, and I use archiving very loosely. It was a cupboard, it was a room. We didn't throw anything out. That's archiving. Was for us anyway, back then. And this included like tapes from going to tangihanga, wānanga, literally rolling up with a tape recorder, hitting record and placing it on the marae ātea in these rooms with these amazing kaumātua of ours and thousands of hours of interviews on the radio. In 2013, following a community meeting that was led by our kaumātua, they provided the mandate for us to start moving into the digital tech space. So you often hear about, oh, well, we would love to do this, but our kaumātua aren't into it, or kaumātua are holding us back, they're not into the future in tech. Well, that was just the opposite for us. You know, we had Hector Busby. He was out there sailing by the stars, but he loved gadgets. You know, this is a guy who was going back Tūturu to his roots, but he was a bridge engineer, really. So he was into tech. So he was ringing us up, oh, can you bring the camera down? We want you to record this and we want you to go live. We're like, Peter said, oh, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. We found this thing called a Raspberry Pi, and Keone did this, and then we had a cell phone, and, you know. So we have been driven and mandated by our kaumātua, and I think that's what's really supported us through this kaupapa. So it was at this hui they said, yep, digital, that's where we need to go for it. 86% of our people don't live here, they're not listening to the radio. We need to find a way to get them. Now we recognised really early on the danger of us putting our content onto platforms like YouTube and on Facebook. And so we said, we're not going to do that. Our funders, Te Māgai Pāho, were like, but you have to get it out. And we're like, that's fine, well, let us build our own place, our place that we could control and maintain data sovereignty over our content and over our data and our stories. So we built our whare kōrero, tehiku.nz, as a safe place to do that. We were concerned back then about ensuring that our data was used for our purposes only. We were supported by Te Māngai Pāho and Ngā Taonga Sound and Vision to digitise our room full of stuff. 1,600 tapes, video cassettes, hard drives, all in storage cupboards in 1 Melba Street, Kaitaia. Now, there was probably no long-term vision when they started not throwing stuff out, but keeping it was very intentional. Not throwing it out was intentional, but I don't know that anyone really ever imagined what it would become. We have subsequently been able to hold and maintain the largest archive in the iwi radio network of all 21 radio stations. Within it was this one collection called Te Haura o Te Reo Māori, the Māori Hour, the Māori Language Hour. It was hosted by a kaumātua called Sissy Midgard, or Tūngane Kore Midgard. She was a Ngāti Pro. She married the lighthouse keeper at the Cape, and she could speak beautiful Māori. And so they sent her out with a tape recorder, and she interviewed kaumātua in their homes. And these were people that, I think the earliest interview, the kaumātua was born in like 1890. So she was nearly 100 when Auntie went out and did her interview, right through, to sort of all of these ones that were born 1910, 20, 30. And so their stories are all about growing up at this time, and they all spoke a native version of Te Reo Māori. And some of them had gone and moved away and lived all over the place, but they still had those features. And so it was this catalogue that really inspired us to be like, well, how do we make the most of this We can't just pop it up online as an audio recording for people to go listen to, because if they don't know that reo, they're going to find it really difficult. So we thought, well, let's go out and interview some kaumātua that are alive today and use this as a practice tool to transcribe those interviews and put them online and have them as an interactive transcript. So we went to Te Kaha, we went here in Auckland, and we interviewed kaumātua, and then we transcribed the interviews. Now, I don't know if you've met Kioni Mahilona. He's not the most patient person in the world, and he's like, oh my God, this is taking so long. Why is it taking you so long? We've got to do this thing, and I want to do this thing. And we became very aware that manually transcribing these interviews was going to take forever, and we were not going to be able to achieve our goal of getting the stuff out. So, of course, the natural thing to do in 2018 is to go, well, we'll just teach computers how to talk Māori. And we all said, yes, what a great idea. Let's do that. So in 2018, we launched Kōrero Māori. It was a one-year project that was funded by the Kahau Fund, which was a small fund that came out of the Māori Spectrum sort of sales and negotiations with the Crown. And the committee at the time, I think Nanaia Mahuta was sort of in charge of it at the time, they tell us now, they're like, man, when we saw your application come in, we thought, what do these people think they're doing? Do they have any idea? No, we didn't. Well, we did, you know, we had no doubt. We had no doubt about our capability, but we really didn't. So they took a punt on us, and they gave us a really small, little amount of money. And that little, small amount of money is what has ultimately led us to where we are today, which I'm going to share more of now. But this ability, or this naivety, ability, delusion, that we could teach computers te reo Māori ultimately came from a place of driven by our community and a desire to revitalise our language for the purposes of, you know, for our community, which is our whole mission and vision. So our mission is he reo tuku iho he reo ora, living language transmitted intergenerationally. When you have an archive of people talking that were born in 1910 and they've long since passed away, how do you continue intergenerational transmission? We need to find a way to bridge that gap, and we felt like AI was a way of doing that, digital transmission intergenerationally. Our thing, whakatōkia, poia, kia mato te reo Māori o ngā haukainga o te Hiku o te ika. Instill, nurture and proliferate the Māori language unique to haukainga of te Hiku o te ika. So yes, that is where we began. But no, for everyone else from all the other iwi, yes, our tools can work for you too. Stop arguing with us. But what about our dialect? Yeah, we can do that too. Anyway, so this has been our approach, and I'll go through each of these things a little bit. First is prioritising domain knowledge, so prioritising the expertise and the knowledge of the people that actually speak the language and for whom the language belongs to. They are the number one priority, and they need to be elevated to that status, and we have continued to do that, and we fight to do it all the time, and it can be really hard, but we feel like we've developed that process now. Investing in our own people, looking at data in slightly different ways, and developing some unique methods. So some of the work that we're doing is not groundbreaking. Europe's, you know, they're not going to accept our paper and be like, oh, you know, this is such a groundbreaking way of doing stuff in terms of the actual, as I call it, beat booping. It's not patronising, there's so many technical terms. But the way that we do it, there are little methods and ways of doing things that are unique, and that you know, you create to achieve the goals that you want. And so I'll give a couple of examples of that. Our kaumātua, like I've said, they mean everything, they drive everything. They are a constant in our organisation, mainly because they ring Peter Lucas all the time. They call them when we get it wrong, they call them when we get it right sometimes. This is Auntie Lenny, or Te Reini Amu Kapa. She was the patron of our organisation. She has since passed away, but she was one of our, you know, very staunch supporters in the beginning. When we did our very first model, I think she said, oh, what's this? It looks like it's Chinese. That's not Māori. So, you know, good harsh critique. She didn't believe that the sound existed in Te Reo Māori. She really wanted to talk to the Māori Language Commissioner about that. She didn't believe it existed and they needed to get rid of it. She's a very staunch Te Kao woman, so they only have a ha. And so, you know, she was vital. That's Waitai Pētera. He's another staunch supporter from Ngāti Kuri as well. So they've always been a part of who we are, and we always elevate their knowledge. And in our model that we've trained, at the very heart of our model is all of our kaumātua archives, because for us, that's the priority, that's the aspiration of our community, to get back to that sound, to use that reo. So if our model starts to get rubbish at that, then it's not working. And so we always come back to how's it doing on our native speakers? Is that the heart still pumping strong in our models because of these wonderful people? We invest in our own people. That's Auntie Girly. She's on the radio every day, 6 till 9. She's 82. And she goes to the gym. She's fabulous. She is a vital part of our team. She sits down with our data scientists at Hui Kaimahi, and she gives them really interesting insights about the language, because she's the data. Because we have our own data pipeline every day. Auntie's on there creating more data. So she can provide really interesting insights to our data scientists about the many terms that she uses for the weather. And this is our team. So as much as we look to bring in expertise, and for some of you in this room, we will be paying invoices today, thank you. We need to elevate the capability and grow the capability and capacity of our own team. And so we do that with our broadcasters. We've had, Daphne's been with us since she was 14 years old. She's now a mother of 4 and she's 25. So growing our team alongside the project has been really important. We are a 90% Indigenous team. We have 3 Pacific members of our team. We have 2 Pākehā, 2 non-Māori, non-Pacific, non-Indigenous people. One of them was born in Kaitaia though. She's married to a Māori. I think she's as close as you can get. She's not a Deli though, so she's not quite. But so we have really focused on growing our capacity and capability. We've got 2 young junior data scientists that have just graduated with their data science degrees that have been part of our team. And so it's a really important part of us to grow that knowledge within our team. We take a whakapapa lens on our data. So for pretty much everybody that works in our organisation, in our data sets is one of their tupuna, as a grandparent, as an auntie, as an uncle. And so when we think about the way our data pipelines work and what data sets go where and who does where, we do it because we actually know the people that are in it. And I will share some examples of that later. But we take a very different approach to the data, which I think you can do when you don't have much. You know, you can be a bit closer to it. But we can tell you in every model exactly how much data is in it and where it came from and who gave us permission to access it. And that has been a very long journey for us. We continue to build relationships with people and establish memorandums of understanding. We signed one last year or the year before with REANNZ for data sharing. We are very specific with them when we say this is the data that we would like. We want something that has this kind of sound or this type of language. We're not saying give us your whole archive, we just ask for very specific data sets. One particular data set, we went and contacted the broadcasters. Obviously, we couldn't contact every person they interviewed, but we emailed and called and sat down with the broadcasters that were still alive of those Reo Māori shows to talk to them about what we're doing, what we're hoping to achieve. And I was saying to Nick, interestingly, a big push when we did that was that we weren't to use the data for building translation models. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. It is such a controversial space in Te Ao Māori and the Reo Māori space. And so that was one caveat. We also had a whānau who didn't want their tupuna's data to be used, mainly because for them, his work, he's quite a famous Māori, had been used all over the place, freely. Everyone had been using his stuff, and they were just organising themselves to be able to take care of his data and his image and his voice, and so they didn't want his stuff used. So giving our community the option to say no is a very important part of our work. So we just take a slightly different lens. That's Teanga Nathan in the blue shirt. He's a whanaunga from Te Kao. He also was working for Te Māngai Pāho at the time, so we're being very nice to Teanga. He just graduated with his PhD, actually. So we did Kōrero Māori, and Kōrero Māori was a corpus gathering exercise with our community. This was this little bit of money that we got, and people were laughing at us because they said, well, you're never going to be able to get enough data. You're not going to be able to get enough text pairs, text and speech together. How are you going to do this? You're going to just be transcribing forever. So we built an app called Kōrero Māori. It still exists. You can go and download it if you like and contribute. But basically, we uploaded a whole bunch of text into this app, into small utterances. And we ran a competition because Māoris are competitive, right? I mean, we call this, understanding the cultural capital of our people. They're competitive. Put them in a group and say, beat that group, they'll go. Yeah. Away we go. Who are they? Yep, we're going to do it. So we tapped in to the psychology of our people, and we said, come together as a group, fundraise for your kaupapa. The groups that read the most Reo Māori sentences correctly, which then set a whole other system in play, but correctly, we made many mistakes here, but wins, and we will contribute to your kaupapa. Mistake number 1, 10 days we had this competition, 10 days. We all nearly killed each other. I don't know how we still like each other. 10 days is too long. If you ever do the exercise, I recommend 5. The second mistake that we did is when we were approving sentences, we used it sounds so ridiculous, I can't believe we thought it was a good idea. We used a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I know, right? I know. So then we had people ringing saying, you gave me 10 thumbs down, and and so anyway. So don't do that either. A lot of learnings. But in 10 days, despite making a lot of mistakes and things breaking and Kioni not sleeping, we got 316 hours of text pairs for training our very first model, which we used deep speech to do, and we built a model with 316 hours of Te Reo Māori and got it to about 86% accuracy, which I think is pretty great. And so we proved we could do it. We proved we could do it. Big part of this conversation, though, as well with the community was about how we were going to take care of their data and what they were contributing it for. So there wasn't like an illusion around it. We were pretty clear, like, we're going to use it to make a model to talk Māori on the computers. They're like, oh, okay. Uncle Tamia thought it was great. Is this the video? Hang on, do I click it again? I don't know if can you click it for me? Wait. Hold the line. Oh, there we go. I didn't want to play there. Thank you.
What data was used to train Sora?
We used publicly available data and licensed data.
So, videos on YouTube?
I'm actually not sure about that.
Okay. Videos from Facebook, Instagram?
If they were publicly available, publicly available to use, there might be the data, but I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not confident about it.
So we didn't want to do that. We didn't want you Could you imagine if we went to a maraehui and they were like, so what data did you, and we were like, oh, maybe, I don't, we would be destroyed. We wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have a job. Peter Lucas wouldn't have a job. We wouldn't live up north. We'd be living overseas. We'd be hiding. Do you know what I mean? The level of accountability that we had and continue to have, meant that we needed to be very clear and very transparent about what we were doing. And it was at these times that we started to really advance our thinking around kaitiakitanga data sovereignty. And so as part of this kaupapa, we developed our own kaitiakitanga license, a way of being able to demonstrate to people the care that we would take with their data. When people come to us to work with us, if there's any sort of data sharing involved, actually any sharing of any of the tools that we've developed and the APIs that we're sharing with other research projects, we ask everybody to sign a kaitiakitanga license so that it's very clear about our expectations around how the data is cared for, what the data is used for. So in our data license, we say that people cannot use it for persecution, they cannot use it for surveillance, they cannot use it for harassment. And sure, people go, well, how are you going to monitor that? Well, it's going to be hard, right? But we've been very, very clear from the outset about our expectation on what our data and our models can be used for. So we have it inbuilt into every single tool that we've developed ever since, and it's all opt-in. So you opt in to sharing your data, it's never an opt-out. Again, if people can't say no, you're doing it wrong. We've developed a whole bunch of really cool methods when tackling some of our challenges. One is around bilingualism. So our people are really cool at code switching. They can use one Māori word and a full English sentence. They can use one English word and a full Māori sentence, and then everything in between. And we have amazing experts who can just switch and bing, bang, bop all their way through te reo Māori, and I'll show you a really cool example later. But that presents a real challenge, right, when you are trying to build a tool for people. Because you need to understand, well, is that Māori, is that English? If it's only going on text, well, then you've got a problem when you've got words like mate and mate. You really don't want to confuse those. So it's been one of our biggest challenges, and we've come up with some really cool techniques. And you know, it's so funny in our little team, we're just heads down doing the mahi, right? You just get on with it and you're like, boom, and then you go, oh, cool, it works. Okay, next. And you move on. And just recently we submitted a chapter for publication in a book, and the reviewer came back, lovely comments, of course. But one big thing was all these questions around how we tackled the bilingual problem, and we didn't realise that it was the thing. So we will be publishing around that soon. But it really taught us a lot going through that, but it's because it became very clear we couldn't just do a reo Māori only model. We did, and I think it's kind of cool that we had this model that was like a little kōhanga kid, you know, only spoke Māori, which was great, but then obviously they grow up and they need to speak English, so our model needed to grow up too. And I think that's when we started to realise that's when we moved on to a new architecture. And we've been able to develop our bilingual model. Deep speech was great, and what a wonderful opportunity to leverage open source technologies, especially for us as a small organisation. We're a big fan of open source tech, not so much open source data. So it's all about co-design, getting that mandate from in our case, our kaumātua. I think for all researchers, that's that mandate from whatever community you're engaging with, that you have the right to be here and to be doing those things. We've been at conferences before where researchers have said, oh, but you know, what if, I get so scared about asking the community or engaging with the community, like, what if they say no? And we're like, well, that's cool. You've given them the opportunity to say no. That's a massive step. But having the gumption to ask those questions of yourself as a researcher first, and then moving into the space of the community, I think is really important. And it's so wonderful to see more of that occurring. Data collection, I shared some of that with you. Our model training is full on. We have a lot of meetings and a lot of work together about how we're going to approach it, the way to train, our distribution of the data, making sure that we prioritise, we've got the right data in there. We do it together with our data science guys and our language experts together. The quality analysis, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in terms of a benchmark. which might be next to this, has been a huge step for us. We did our own, and I'll show you it shortly. And then bringing in our community to look at it again. Now, doing that means that you've got to put it out to the world, is to get the community to engage with it. And it's got to be at a point where you don't annoy anyone, you don't upset anybody. So it has to be of a standard. We're not of this, like, oh, I'll just get it out and then it'll make all these mistakes and it will pass a bunch of people off and it will make people really upset and then we'll fix it all and it'll be great. We can't do that. Okay? We have to get it to a point where it's pretty great first. Then we can get it out there and then we get the feedback from our community. So, evaluating your tools. We learnt really early on that the benchmarks that exist out there that everybody uses to benchmark their language models are pretty rubbish, to be honest. They're not great, but everyone uses them, so everyone continues to use them, right? Because they're like, oh, well, I want to see how I compare to OpenAI, to te mea. So one of the ones that everybody kind of uses, the Flores 101 and the FLIRS data sets are kind of the ones that a lot of people are benchmarking their things by. Just noting, of course, that they only have to get 50% for it to be good, which is wild. Imagine if I got 50% of my talk on the radio wrong. Like, it just wouldn't be right. So we dug really deep into it because we were like, oh, well, how do we know that we're good? And so we started to explore the benchmarks. And this is when we really began to learn just quite how bad they were. So FLIRS, for example, 1,211 sentences in Te Reo Māori, 421 are unique, so lots of repetition. Total words, 30,794, 2,000 of those unique, so again, lots of repetition. They have 4 speakers, and I'll be really honest, 2 of these speakers are not Māori. You can tell. And 2 of the speakers are Māori, and their pronunciation is actually pretty good. It's not terrible, but it is actually pretty good. We've put speaker types there saying unknown, that's just because we're being nice. I think this might have come out of a publication, so we were being nice. So we're like, that's not enough. That's not good enough. It doesn't represent the diversity in our sound. It doesn't represent our aspirations for our language technologies. It's just basically a waste of time. So we built our own benchmark so that we could actually see, how good is our model? Is it good enough? And where is it not good enough? I think that's probably the biggest question. Where is it failing? How can it be better? So our benchmark, we call it Te Taumata. We actually don't, sorry. We actually have a terrible internal name for it, and it started, someone said it 7 years ago or 6 years ago, and it's just stuck. But publicly, we call it Te Taumata. It has 4,835 sentences, 4,588 are unique. Total words, 89,000. Unique words, 6,402. 37 speakers, balanced gender-wise, but actually we've got some work to do there. Because the number of speakers, there's pretty good gender balance, but actually the number of sentences that are spoken by those genders, it's a little bit out of whack, and we need to do a bit of work there. And then within our benchmark, we've made a whole bunch of sub-benchmarks. Our native speakers. We've got first language contemporary. So these are our kura kids, our kohanga reo kids, who speak a very interesting type of reo Māori that they've gained through their education. And Māori was their first language in a contemporary world, so it's different. Compared to a second language learner who, as an adult, has gone to gain the language and has, again, a different type of reo. And so we've benchmarked those. We've also benchmarked really great code switching, and we're looking to introduce a number of other sub-benchmarks so that we can continue to meet our aspirations and goals for our tech. So here's some cool examples. I won't try and play the audio because it will send him wild up there. So, Mihi Moria Mete. Mihi Moria Mete was a kaumātua who lived in her community forever. So she never left the far north. She lived in her community with her people. So the way she talks Māori is very different. In fact, so different, for us to transcribe 45 minutes of an interview with her, it took us about 3 months because it was so difficult. It was so difficult for me who didn't grow up with that sound, and even for Peter Lucas, who was like, oh, I think she's saying this, or I think she's doing this. So she talks fast, really, really fast. So ka kite nei au I taua tātara moa nei ira ira. Me taku meanga I. That's a Māori word. He tātara moa. So she's talking about a particular plant and its use for medicinal purposes. Hone ka Māriera. I don't know what's happened there. This is my grandfather. Now, my grandfather was born in the north. He left when he went to war, World War II. He came back, convalesced here in Green Lane Hospital, went home, but then ended up in Palmerston North at the Returned Servicemen's Rehab Farm down in Palmerston North. And he was also a minister in the church. So he ended up teaching at Massey University as a lecturer in Te Reo Māori. Accidentally, runs in the family. So his reo is very different again. The way that he spoke was very different again. And in this, which I don't know what's done that, but he still had little examples of reo from home. So rangi is engari, tahi anō, ka tahi anō. So he has little native speaker kind of nuances in there. Willow Jean Prime. An amazing example of someone with such an amazing handle of te reo Māori, but it very much sits, when we interview it, within a particular context, te ao tō rangapu, politics. So her reo's really cool. Well, e mohu ana koe, e kai ngā kau ana hau ki tō tātou reo Māori. E hara ahau i te, ka hore au I whiwhi taku reo I au e pepe ana. So she didn't grow up with the reo, she got it later on in life. So she's an example of our second language learner. Manuera Manihira, if you've seen the movie, the Disney one, it's the Mexican family. No, the other one. Coco. He's Coco. Yeah, he's Coco in the Māori version. So this is a kura kid, right? His reo is a very different type of reo, his cadence, all of that. So he's in our benchmark. Uncle Tame's in our benchmark. Uncle Tame was on the radio forever. And why have my words gone all funny? As I was saying to Nick, a Māori person speaks English different in Kaitaia versus to somebody that speaks English in Christchurch and in the streets of Invercargill. So we have Uncle Tame talking English, sort of. So today I had a nice kōrero with a kaumātua from Mangamuka. That's English in Kaitaia, that's English to us. And then we have the amazing Pāhenare Tate, who was a Catholic priest, a prolific author, and hilarious. And I love his thing. He's one of our examples of this beautiful code switching. He's the benchmark to us. If our model can crack Pāhenare Tate, we know it's working really, really well. Not to be synonymous with the English word to love. Nah, the English said, I can love God. I love God. English says, I love people. English says, I love myself. But English also says, I love coleslaw. And so he's talking about, does aroha equal love? The concept of aroha. Can you aroha? E taia rā nei te aroha te coleslaw? That's the next bit. Anyway. So in our benchmark, we have these wonderful examples. And I think it's really important. And we've shared this. And actually, NeurIPS accepted this paper. Accepted our paper on benchmark. We were the first Indigenous poster paper, peer-reviewed paper to be accepted to NeurIPS. Something we're very, very proud of. Thank you. We're able to demonstrate the value of pursuing your own benchmarks and your own standards. So what has all of it done? So what have we achieved? Word error rate, we're doing great. But we've developed important data sharing relationships with organisations such as REANNZ, et cetera, et cetera. We've digitised hours and hours and hours of our archive and transcribed it. But really, the goal is to be able to get the tech into the hands of the people, right? No point making all these really cool things and nobody can use it. When we started Papareo, so Papareo was actually an MB-funded strategic science investment project. We're coming into our last year. When we started it, we thought, we'll build the APIs and then all the developers will come. and they'll all want to use them, and then it'll be great. And they'll build all the tools, because we're not app developers, we're not these things. Guys, they didn't come. Some came, and we were like, oh, cool, so how's this going to benefit Māori? And then they literally didn't reply to the emails. So we were like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to build it ourselves. So we did. So we've built Kaituhi. Kaituhi is a web-based transcription tool where you can edit transcriptions. We have our biggest users are academics that are conducting research interviews. The second is media and production houses, so because your funders require you to have scripts, and you can use it for paper editing. So we've grown the users of this. We used it to label our data. That's where it began. It was a platform that we used to plug our API in, test it out, and label our own data. People saw it and said, oh, can we use it? And so we did, and it got a facelift last week, i te whānau. The ugly duckling became a swan. It was really hideous, and now she's beautiful. So that's kaituhi.nz, go check it out. We built rongo. So one thing we kept hearing from our people through the Kōrero Māori campaign was, oh, I'm too scared to talk Māori, because what if I say it wrong? What if I pronounce it incorrectly? And I know that this is a common issue with Reo Māori learners. So we built rongo. We leveraged our little deep speech API, and we figured out it could measure people's pronunciation, and it could give them real-time feedback on their pronunciation while they were at home, when no one could see them, when no one could look at them. We got rid of the thumbs up, thumbs down. That didn't work for people. And instead we follow the te ātārangi method, where it's, so for example, he manu tērā, and you say he manu tērā, it says, kōrero mai, manu. And you're like, oh, okay, I got manu wrong, try it again. So we use a sort of really well-known pedagogy approach. We also don't show you the words, which people find really challenging, and we're gonna maybe ease up on that a little bit. But the idea is that you just listen, because once you see a word, that bank in your brain that says MA sounds like this because of other words that I know, kicks in. And so we tried to get rid of it, but people had a big sook about it. So we're trying to find it. So you can download this now, it's free, it's on Android and Apple. The first set of lessons is really just a starting point. Some of them are really long, sorry, we didn't know. Anyway, we're learning all the time, i te whānau. You've got to give it a go. So real-time feedback on that. We're going to be adding place names, sentences around place names, and conversational, and we're working with our relations in Te Tai Rāwhiti, so on the East Coast, so that people that want to sound more like a Ngāti Porou, I don't know why, but want to sound more like a Ngāti Porou, or we're going to work with our whānau in Taranaki. If you want to sound more like your iwi from Taranaki, you can actually start to try and pronounce the words like that. So you can download that for free. This is a video that's not going to work. But this is a video of a young man called Kainoa. Kainoa has cerebral palsy and is non-verbal. We've built synthetic voices so that they can talk in te reo Māori, and it sounds like te reo Māori, not an Australian talking Māori, but like a Māori person talking Māori. So unfortunately, it's not going to work. That speech synthesized voice project came out of one of our relations, Geneva, Timo Hikaira, who is also cerebral palsy and non-verbal, who has to speak using a machine, and she was so frustrated as a fluent speaker of te reo Māori, she's a kura kaupapa kid, went to Huani Waititi, that she couldn't sound Māori. So we've built her a voice, and we've built Kainoa a voice, and so, yeah, it's a really beautiful project. And the greatest challenge of all was getting it to work on their devices. And so a lot of the stuff that we do works on device because, one, our people are not always connected to the internet. People in Pangaru, Mitimiti, these small communities where it's actually difficult to get connectivity, couldn't use our tools because of the internet. The other thing is our API costs are really high, so I'd love to speak to anybody here that can help us reduce those costs. And unfortunately, we have to pass those on to our users. And so we do a lot of stuff so that it happens on device, so that it's not, making the bills go up. So yeah, would love to talk to you about that, just sponsorship or something. Anyway, and speech synthesis is very high, and so yeah, really important to get that onto our relations, Volkman devices, so they can talk Māori. It's great. Parts of speech tagger, this is old tech. A lot of the stuff we built is old. It's like, 20 years ago. Do you know there's never been a part of speech tagger for Te Reo Māori that actually works? So we're going to build one because it's good to have one, because there are going to be times when people are going to need some really basic foundational tech to use. OCR. If we could get an OCR with a Māori language model stuck in the back of it, our archives, there'd be fewer mistakes. And anyway, lots of things. This is our newest one. We quietly launched it last week. Very quietly, at the Iwi Leaders Forum. It is a dictation app. It has a live streaming API in the back of it, and you can dictate and live caption and do lots of really cool things, and that's available now for Android and Apple, very quietly. We'll see more about it later, but we got it out. There was a busy week last week, te whānau. Waitangi. So yeah, it's a really wonderful app, again, just getting our tech out into people's hands. So, just to conclude, I think, yes, here we go, well done me. Still got it, eh? Lecturing, woo! Lessons we've learned. Quality over quantity every time. You do not need bajillion, manillion parameter models, and you do not need hundreds upon thousands of data, hours of data. Sure, it might help if it's good. If it's not good, it's actually not going to work sometimes. You can do it with less. We've proven it. We've proven that you can. We've now built our first Olelo Hawaii Hawaiian language model using our model as the foundation. And so we've needed less, data than we had. And the goal is to just slowly work our way through the Pacific and build on top of that. And I won't talk to you about that language campaign. That was crazy. But yeah, so you don't need to, because if you have the human experts involved at every stage, you don't need it. Domain experts as co-creators, I think that's obvious, and I feel like everyone in this room gets it. Challenge universal benchmarks. I mean, they're cool and they're helpful to compare yourself to people, but when it's about your testing and what your purpose is, build purpose, fit for purpose benchmarks for yourself and with your community, because it's a really great place for them, and you'll learn heaps about what actually matters. So work with that. Ethics is not a checkbox, we get that, you're all onto it. And decolonise your pipeline. Who decides what data to collect? Who evaluates success? If these aren't community-led decisions, you're just replicating colonial structures. That's a nice line. This is our team. This is us. We're cool. Just letting you know. That's us. There's people. There's not many of us. We're a really small team. We broadcast on the radio. We live stream kapahaka. We build models. We build apps. We do a lot of work, and we love it. We absolutely love it, and we love the opportunity for you guys to go and check out all our cool stuff. And here's some of our publications. We do that too, even though MB were like, oh no, you guys don't need to. We're like, no, we can, and we have. we have published, and so we do have some stuff out there that you can use and refer to. But just in closing, I do want to be really honest about the challenges that we face. So compute is hard. We were really lucky we were part of the NVIDIA program. It meant we got 50% off. It's like Briscoes. On some GPUs, so thank you to NVIDIA. No one would have known that we had 8 A100 GPUs like just tickling away at 1 Melba Street in our dusty, musty radio station, but we did. And so compute's a big challenge for everybody, and I understand that. We are human-centric, so that takes time, and it's time-intensive. We think it's paid off in the long run for us in terms of the quality of our technology. And of course, the ongoing challenge of sustainability, not just environmentally, but financially. How do we keep moving forward? And we are, and we're continuing to do that work and continuing to solve problems for our Māori language community here in Aotearoa. I guess just to finish, kia tangata whenua, AI that grows from the land and people. It's not just a cool slogan and a really great journal article title, I must say. But for us, it's a real different paradigm on how we've built our technology. Start with community need, not technical possibility. Sometimes you've got to go backwards to go forwards. It means recognising our language specialists and cultural experts. It means building systems that serve intergenerational transmission. The tools we've built aren't perfect, but they're ours, literally built and housed on our GPUs and our data centres, with some people see as data centres. And they reflect our priorities, our language and culture, and they're creating space for te reo Māori to thrive in the digital world. So if you want to learn more about our work, please go and read our articles and visit our websites. And if you would like to talk about working in marginalised communities or in language technology with low resource languages, we'd love to share with you, so please get in touch. So ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Thank you all for your time and attention. Boom, 11:25. Kia ora kate.